Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is one of the biggest games that is on the horizon, and we recently received a 4-minute trailer of the game that gives us a lot more insight about what it's going to be like um, here pretty soon and what we're going to be getting. So let's go ahead, let's watch this video. I'm going to be reacting to this video and what this guy has to say about this current trailer and the upcoming game. So let's get started.
All right, guys, Wes here. Welcome back to the channel, and today we are back again with another Zelda Tears of the Kingdom video.
Let's go, guys.
The final trailer has been released, and it's packed with a bunch of exciting details and huge reveals. From the possibility of playing Zelda herself to the return of traditional dungeons, as
I've
well
always
as the
wanted to play
exploration
Zelda
of Hyrule's vast oceans. We have a ton of new details to go over. They were not showcased in the final trailer. Some of it was from a brand new TV spot that got leaked, which confirms one of the epic bosses we'll be facing off against, and how we will begin our journey.
Three-headed dragons.
Kingdom.
That's
so whether you're
one.
a hardcore fan or just dipping your toes into the world of Hyrule, you don't want to miss this video, as I'll be covering everything from the latest news, leaks, rumors to the most
I like
subtle
that they
details
kept the
hidden
same
in the final
aesthetic
trailer.
as
Let's dive
the
in and
first
discover
one,
what
Breath of the
secrets
Wild.
await. Well, real quick, guys, do you want to win a Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Switch OLED? Well, I'm giving one away, as well as a free copy of Tears of the Kingdom every 1,000 followers on my Twitch channel. If you want to enter, all you have to do is follow
that's
me on
the
Twitch and tune
possible
into my
upcoming
700-hour Zelda stream marathon starting
Twitch
on
design
May 1st. And I have
or
the full
Switch
details that are
design
in the pinned
that
comment. Starting things off,
might
let's go ahead and
be
talk about
released
the
at the
latest
same time
news
as the
on
game.
how Link will begin his journey in Tears of the Kingdom. According to a recent update on the Zelda website, our hero Link begins his journey on one of the mysterious floating islands that have suddenly appeared in the skies above Hyrule. It's
Yeah,
there
just
our
like
hero will
always,
have
right?
to gain new abilities
Start
before
somewhere on
returning
a
to the surface world
remote
to
area
begin
where
his
there's
epic
nothing.
adventure. But the sky isn't the only thing that's changed in Hyrule. Familiar locations have been dramatically transformed, with new towns, dank caves, and mysterious gaping chasms springing up across the world, all waiting to be explored. Now, the most interesting...
Yeah, that's kind of interesting to me. There's not a lot of congruency in terms of vegetation, other things like that. You'll see some of these older trees and things like that that might be showing up in the trailer, you know, magically appear. These trees that probably take thousands of years to grow.
An aspect of this statement where they say Link begins his journey on one of the many mysterious floating islands. Does that mean the spawn point will be randomly generated, or is there going to be one central spawn point like the Shrine of Resurrection in the previous game? Next up, we have some brand new information from a TV spot that showcased the latest trailer with some additional new details. Now, at the end of the trailer, they showcase new gameplay of the Gleeok, but if you look at the name of the Hydra, it says a Flame Gleeok. This confirms that the Gleeok is not only a mini boss, but this might actually mean that there will be different types of elemental Gleeoks. I'm sure throughout our time exploring Hyrule, we will come across various elemental Gleeoks, for instance, ice, electric, and flame. Also in the trailer, we got to see Link flying above Hyrule Castle, which really shows off the scale of the game. Besides that, we didn't get really anything
I
else
wish
from
they
the TV
added
spot
more
that was leaked,
castles.
as most of it was already
I'm
showcased
a little bit
in the
disappointed
final
that they only
trailer.
got the
Next up, we
one
got
from what
another
we've
official
seen.
reveal that was in the form of download cards for the game that are now appearing at stores in Japan. And on the back, there is some screenshots of Tears of the Kingdom with two characters that are seemingly connected. Now, these creatures are likely
those look like new characters. We don't know who they are yet.
The theory about the character to the left is either that is the alternative version of Zelda, the Zonai Zelda, or what I personally believe is that right there is the goddess Hylia. And then the character to the right is some sort of warrior that features the same arm that Link has. So could this be an ancient Zonai Link? It's hard saying, but what we do know is they are likely voice acted.
Yeah,
because
some
as you
type
guys
of
can see
past
from this
life
shot,
or something
when they
like
said,
that.
and
Who
I
knows?
quote, our last line of defense is Link. Now, it's really hard to determine who this character is. I'll talk about it a little bit more in a bit, as well as where Zelda is located currently. Obviously, she needs Link to find her. Is she trapped in time? Possibly when the ancient Zonai were living and they ruled the skies above, but I will theorize that more in just a bit. Before I go down a rabbit hole of theorizing everything, let's do a deep dive.
Everybody's
of the trailer, and
going down rabbit holes since this
and give you
trailer
guys as many
released.
explanations that my mind can process. So starting things off from the first shot, you see some of the sky islands in all of their glory. You hear the gorgeous theme playing. In the next shot, you have a construct who is currently fighting a choo-choo. Now, this right here is hard to speculate, but it is kind of weird that the constructs are attacking the choo-choo, but in the previous trailers, we were the ones attacking the constructs. Obviously, we were doing that in
I think that they were meant
so
to just protect the floating island from any foreign foreign body or whatever intruder.
Of the Zonai charge that is powering these robots. Skipping ahead a little bit, in the next shot, you see a ranger construct. These are more the friendly creatures that are chomping down a tree to gather materials and supplies to rebuild something. One of the themes in Tears of the Kingdom is rebuilding Hyrule. It's a working theory that I've had for a long time, but now that we see constructs chopping down trees, maybe their mission is to rebuild Hyrule to its former glory, or at the very least, the Sky Islands. In the next scene, we see
Yeah, it
Link
may
flying
not
down to the
be
surface of Hyrule, but if we pause for a second, you can actually
it
see
may
a
not
structure
be
behind him
that big of
many
a theme as
speculate
to
this
why
is
they're
almost like the
cutting
Tears of the
cutting
Kingdom's
trees.
Shrine of
Big part of a
Resurrection.
theme.
But this building looks very similar to the Sky Keep that was featured in Skyward Sword, with Skyward Sword being the very start of the timeline and Tears of the Kingdom potentially being not only a sequel but a prequel. It would make sense that whenever the Sky Islands were created, so was the Sky Keep. Now, a bit further into the trailer, we see Link go from the diving animation to the freefall animation, but in the background, you see the glyphs that are on the side of the mountain. As I speculated in my previous video, these glyphs could be several things. They could be the people of
It's
Hyrule
nice that he
calling
gets
out
his
to the
glider
beings in the
early,
sky to
just
save
like
them
before.
from the threat that is Ganondorf and his minions. You also see a pool of malice, which could be the entrance to the underground, possibly the location of an enemy base that is underground. The next thing that I have to point out is just how amazing the score of this game is. It almost feels like they took all of the criticism
I
from the
like that you
previous
get
game
that
with the more
whole
subtle
top
piano
view
playing
map.
and ramped it up to an entirely new level. The brass instruments used in the score of Tears of the Kingdom are some of the best music that I've heard in the entire series. In the next shot, you see Link deploy his paraglider with more of those glyphs on the ground. These could possibly be the locations of the new beasts that are in this game, possibly the replacement of the divine beasts in this game, but it's hard to say. Either way, the Nazca line looking glyphs
Yeah,
add
there's
a
some
pleasant
cool
touch to the
new
overall aesthetic of
enemies
Hyrule. Moving right along, we get to the
in
grasslands
this
of
game.
Hyrule. On the right side of the shot, you see a rock-like structure that looks like a shrine, one that doesn't have the green smoke that are spiraling above. One theory that I had for the rock-like structures in Tears of the Kingdom is those are the replacement of the shrines that were featured in the game's predecessor. Now, in Breath of the Wild, we had these shrines that were located underground. That could
I
be
finished
accessed from
about
above. So
80,
Tears of the
90%
Kingdom
of the
featured a vast
shrines when I
underground,
played
one that
Breath
could
of
be
the
freely
Wild.
explored, it seems like. It means that the
You know, I
shrines that
beat
were
the game,
previously
but
there
I
are no
finished,
longer present.
beat it,
So the
got about
replacement is the
80,
sky shrines.
90%
And in
of
order to get to
the
a sky
of the
shrine, you walk
shrines.
over to one of those rocks that actually has
At
an
some point, you
entrance,
explore
and
the
use the
entire
ascend
world,
feature to
and
get to the
then,
Sky
you know,
Island
it's just
and
kind of
complete
time
the
to move
shrine.
on.
The absence of the green smoke likely shows that that sky shrine above has already been completed. These rocks are also going to be the replacement for the fast travel system that the previous game's shrines allowed us to use. Now, if we move forward just a bit more, you see Hyrule in all of its glory. And just look at the draw distance. This game has shown yet again that it is not its predecessor, and it actually looks like they developed it for the Nintendo Switch rather than having to support the previous generation Nintendo Wii U. If we move on a bit
Yeah,
further
that's
into the trailer,
great
we
to
have
see
a
the
shot
progress
of Hateno Village,
of
which got a
the
bit of a
engine and the
psychedelic revamp
graphics.
with all of the mushrooms. Now, it's hard saying what the reason of these shrooms for. Possibly it was a recent fashion trend.
Nintendo
Near this
loves
location
shrooms.
could be the entrance to an underground area. Now, if you remember from the previous trailers, we saw an underground cave that had these giant mushrooms. So maybe the villagers of Hateno Village found an entrance to the underground and located these mushrooms, and are now using them as both a fashion trend and a place to sell mushrooms with various effects, similar to the puff shroom from the other gameplay trailer that we got. Now, not to nerd out too much, but if you remember from the previous game, this location right here was a clothing shop by the shopkeeper Sophie. Now, if you remember, Sophie was kind of nestled up in the corner, and she was just overall content being out of the spotlight. The mushroom store that is now located at the same place the clothing store is at could be a way for the villagers of Hateno Village to blend in, similar to what Sophie was trying to do in the corner.
That's
Another
an
thing that I'd like
interesting
to point
idea.
out is just how alive the world feels with how many villagers that are out and about throughout Hateno. Now, in the next scene, Link is at Central Hyrule right in front of the castle. Now, in this shot, you see some tents that were created for the soldiers that will help defend Hyrule from the threat that is Ganondorf and his minions. If you look at the structure in the middle of the tents, I believe that is a spear, which is where they place their weapons. This leads me to believe that this is the start of a military outpost. The location is still in ruins after
Yeah,
the
it
Great
could be a
Calamity
military
100 years ago,
outpost.
but to see that there is life is awesome. For the next shot, we
But
see
it doesn't
Link
necessarily
climbing up the
have to
mountains
be. I
surrounding
mean, maybe
Kakariko
there was an
Village. At the bottom
encampment
right,
and
you can
people
see
moved
one of
on.
those sky shrine locations with the green smoke. In the background on the mountain, you see a circular structure that looked like it fell from the sky when the Sky Islands rose. Maybe one of Link's tasks is to recall these objects that are misplaced and possibly put them back into the sky where they belong, or move them out of the way
Yeah,
entirely
that's one of the
so they
new
don't
cool
tumble down
abilities.
and destroy Kakariko Village, which is probably not a good idea because the Kukos will go absolutely bonkers. It looks like Kakariko is in good shape though, besides the structures that fell on it. Now, in this shot, we get to an area in Tears of the Kingdom that wasn't so visible in the previous game, and that is the Typhlo Ruins. This is the location of the Shrouded quest from Breath of the Wild. Will the area that the Shrouded quest is still at still be completely pitch black, or are we going to see what's there? Interestingly enough, I went to this location in Breath of the Wild recently, and the statues you can see on the right and left look very similar to the Zonai dragons that are featured throughout the rest of Hyrule. If you take a look at this video
those
on
dragons
screen, you
are
see the
pretty
ruins
epic.
without the darkness. I could be wrong here, but the dragon structure on the screen right here looks exactly like a Zonai dragon. Maybe this is another location where the Zonai lives. Further off in the distance of this shot is
I
one of
think
the
that's a
lonely
good guess.
labyrinths, which also happen to be created by the Zonai.
I mean, the fact that you just saw one up in the air,
tornado, which looks
that
pretty
might
wicked.
be
This is the same
an
or a
indicator
similar
as
tornado
well.
that the flying ship was at later on in the trailer. Now, if you play Breath of the Wild, then you know that this tornado is where Rito Village is, and the ships are actually being controlled by the Rito. But we'll leave that for another episode of Storm
Yeah, they got
Chasers
those ships in
featuring
the
West
air,
Nemo
as if
Timber.
Zelda
Now, for the
wasn't
next shot
close
we
enough to
have
Peter
is
Pan
of
already.
Gerudo Desert. On the very left, we see another one of those sky shrines with a gigantic structure that is emerging from the ground. Now, one piece of speculation that I'd like to talk about is that the Gerudo Desert is actually the modern day Lanayru Desert. This theory was first mentioned on Zelda Dungeon, where they said that Groose is the first Gerudo. At the end credit scene of Skyward Sword, you see Groose heading to the Lanayru
guy's
Desert.
goofy
If
looking.
that's the case, then this giant structure that is rising above the land in the Gerudo Desert could possibly be the Lanayru mining facility that was also featured as a dungeon in Skyward Sword. Moving on, we see a shot of Hyrule Castle that is currently being lifted up into the sky. If you look at the right side of this shot, you see the green like smoke, possibly the Zonai technology that is what formed the Sky Islands in the first place.
Yeah,
Moving forward
very
just
cool.
a little
All the
bit, you see a
glowing
wider shot of the
green.
Hyrule Castle being risen up from the ground.
It's like
On the left side, you
electricity.
see a foundation with building materials, and you see the first reaction of what looks to be the Sheikah reacting to what's happening to Hyrule Castle and the rest of Hyrule. And now that brings us to one of the most controversial aspects of this final trailer.
It's like
Who
a
is the
lava
person
octopus
with
or
the
something.
red hair? Is it Demise? Is it Ganondorf? It's really hard saying, but what we do know is that either Ganondorf or Demise is receiving a ton of the power of the Blood Moon and has morphed into a completely different being. Now, if you look at the clothes that they're wearing, you could see that they're filled with malice, which means that whoever this is receiving the power of the Blood Moon to get even stronger. Now, if we zoom in on this frame right here, it looks very similar to Demise. Obviously, Demise has the long hair that's fiery.
Dude, he's
this
looking
time
great
it's a little less
in this
fiery
game.
and rather inflamed by the Blood Moon. In the next shot, you have Link in his malice infected hand reaching out to a falling Zelda to try to save her from her eventual demise. See what I did there? With Link failing to grab her with his malice hand, she starts to fall and you see a golden glow on
Yeah,
her
you
torso
see
as well as in her
did you
hand,
see his
which tells me
hand?
that she
It
likely
looks
still
like
has a piece of the
it's
Triforce.
either
In the next
infected
shot,
or he
we see
lost
the
his
Gerudo
hand,
Desert
almost
as
like
well. In the very back, you
Luke
see a
Skywalker, how he
creature
got
on
his
the
hand
mountain
chopped
in one of
off
the
and then
glyphs.
replaced
To the
with
right
that
side of
black
shot, you see another one of those rocks,
robotic
but this
hand.
time it also doesn't have the glowing smoke, but you could see it features a door. Now, also in this shot, you see Link running through the desert in between different sinkholes. Will this be a random event once you start heading over to this area? Could it be this is where Moldugas spawn, or is this another access
Yeah,
to an
it could
underground
be,
location?
you know,
I'm
that there's
thinking that it's
animals
probably
that
all of the
dug
above.
those
Maybe
pits.
not the Molduga, but it could be the creature-like glyph that is located on the mountain. So this could possibly signify where the dungeon is located. You go to one of the glyphs, you look around. Oh, there's a bunch of sinkholes in the ground. Let's go ahead and investigate. Let's go down in the sinkhole. And what do you know? It's the entrance to a dungeon. Now, the next shot, you see Link with his flame breaker.
Oh, that's
gear that he
interesting. It might
received
be
at Death
openings
Mountain. Now, to the
into a
normal viewer,
cave.
you're probably seeing this location and you're like, oh, this has to be where the sinkholes lead to. Well, I would say probably not. This is just classic
I like that there's
misdirection from
more of
Nintendo,
this is
and
more
where we're at right
cavernous.
now is
There's more
possibly
caves in this
inside
one
of Death
compared to Breath of the
Mountain.
Wild.
You see the streams of lava. We have the flame breaker gear on. The volcano doesn't look like it is activated with lava, but rather it's hollow, filled with malice. The next scene, we get a close-up of the tornado that we talked about previously that has two flying ships that are enjoying the ride. Maybe these ships are controlled by the Rito. It looks like the helm of the ship kind of looks like it's a bird because it's got a beak, or it could be where the Zonai are as well. Next up, we see one of the tasks from the Sky Shrine. You see Link jumping into a spherical pool of water with a green eyeball in it, and then you see Link do a swimming animation. This swimming animation he's done before. It is very similar to the one in Breath of the Wild, so nothing too crazy to see just yet, but either way, it does confirm
Yeah,
that there is at
gravity
least some
seems
type
to
of
affect
underwater
those
gameplay,
floating
even if it's in the
islands
form of
differently,
this
which
water
is pretty
ball right
cool.
here. And then for the next shot, we have a tube that is like Mission Impossible Zelda Edition. Link is diving down into what looks like a dungeon where he's trying to avoid lasers.
It looks
so
like he
can
has a
get to the
special
very
suit
bottom
in this
without
one
setting
as
off a
well.
trap
He
that
doesn't
will
have his
inevitably
normal
kill him.
glider.
And then
Look at
for
that.
a single frame in the trailer, you see Link with a brand new suit on, a wingsuit. So that confirms that we will not only be using the paraglider to glide, but also the wingsuit to glide. For the next scene, we see Link in another sky shrine, and this is inside of what is likely the big Death Star sphere.
I
in
bet
the
there's a
sky.
lot
You also
more
have one of those gumball
airborne
machines. I have no idea what
travel
that is,
in
but it
this.
looks
You
cool
might actually be able
nonetheless.
to
Next up, we have
travel
a shot of
by
Link gliding through one of the Lomi
holding on
labyrinths
to some
that is
type of
also
bird
now
or
located
something.
in the sky. Now, moving on to the next shot, we see Link as well as other villagers and warriors that are fighting off bokoblins, moblins, and Link is wielding a Zonai fused weapon. And I just love seeing the other villagers fight off the enemy hordes alongside Link. This area looks a lot different. There used to be a bunch of guardians around, but they're
That
no
weapon's
longer
pretty
there.
cool.
But it is being used as a battleground again. And now we have Link inside of an elevator, and he is wielding a Sheikah slate. Holy crap, he's using Zelda's Sheikah slate. Is this at the start of the game? Is it at the end? I'm not exactly sure, but it looks like he's also wielding a winch. But I'll go ahead and
Which
let you
also
guys speculate.
looks like
now in this
a
scene,
Nintendo
we
Switch.
have a Zonai. This looks to be the same Zonai that we talked about earlier in the video from the download card in Japan. This character looks like he is a good character, as he is seen right next to Zelda. Maybe it's not the same person, but they look very similar. Moving on a bit
Yeah,
further,
he
we
puts
see
he
a
puts his
giant
hand on the
construct
shoulder
that
of
is inside
Zelda,
the
so I'm
wall.
guessing
This
he's
will
a good
also
guy.
likely be one of the mini boss fights. I'm not sure if this is on a Sky Island or not. It kind of looks very similar to a Sky Island. In the next shot, we see Link inside of Hyrule Castle in the inner
All armored
sanctum
out.
that has been restored. Now, my working theory about this situation right here is that this is time travel. This is our boy Link traveling through time and entering the inner sanctum prior to the events 100
Right,
years
you can
ago.
tell
Now, in
he's
the
probably
next scene,
either
we see
traveling through
Zelda
time
in what looks
or
to be
it's a
Zonai
flashback
structure or something on
because
a Sky Island,
it's
possibly even
still
inside of Skykeep.
completely
Fast forwarding just a
constructed and it's
bit,
not
we have
damaged.
Zelda right in front of a Zonai. This is likely the same one from before, as it is featuring the same arm that Link currently wields, with Zelda shockingly.
All right, guys, that's all I'm going to be covering today on this trailer. If you want to watch the rest of this, it's at West Nemo. He's got a great channel. I hope you guys liked what we covered, and you guys have a good day.